All right, now we're ready to start. Um, Hi again, everybody. My name is Yasmin. I'm OIUF's Community Engagement Coordinator, and our foundation is a nonprofit organization with the mission to find cures for ocular inflammatory diseases, combat the deficit of properly trained physicians that care for ocular inflammatory disease, and provide support to patients with the condition. Um, in addition to our support groups that we hold once a month, we have a number of upcoming events, again, for supporting the research, education, and support of patients with ocular inflammatory disease. We have a few in-person events coming up. First, in September, we have a crash course conference where patients can opt to fly into Louisville, Kentucky, if that's nearby, and take a day to learn all about ocular inflammatory disease from our experts. We also have walks for vision in both Boston and New Jersey, in August 25th in Boston and September 15th in New Jersey, as a way to fundraise and walk in support of the education and research of ocular inflammatory disease. And a little bit later on in November, we'll be having our annual online auction once again to fundraise. And I will move on and allow Frances, our support group facilitator, to introduce herself and get started with explaining more about what we're doing here today.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our virtual support group, which we do hold every month. And you can go to uveitis.org to get a list of the monthly support group. And also at the crash course, we do have a support group at the end of that meeting as well. So hopefully some of you may join us there. So the support group is a self-help support group. As a self-help support group, we, meaning us, our patients, our family members, share stories or experiences about living with a chronic eye inflammatory condition to help each other cope better, live better, and find the best care so that we can all get into remission. The focus of our support group is on the present. It's on the present and helping each other to move forward in a positive way, to help, again, us cope better and live with our chronic illness. We don't offer any medical advice unless we have a license to do so, nor do we ask the guest speaker to give us any medical advice. We also like to be positive. Again, when we're forward, we're helping each other cope better, so no criticism of past healthcare negative experiences we've had, nor of any healthcare providers. And some housekeeping. I ask everybody to stay muted until it's your turn to speak. And if we get Zoom bombed, we leave the meeting and then rejoin. And I'd like to introduce tonight our speaker, Catherine Gassler. She is an awesome dynamic speaker who knows all about Apple products. Her background is in software training. She worked for Apple for many years and taught people with low vision and disabilities how to use the Apple accessibility products. So I think at this point, I also want to say that she also is a patient who has uveitis. So she completely understands the disease, the flare-ups, the ups and downs in your vision. Maybe some days your vision is good, some days your vision is low. So I think bringing that perspective to the talk adds to the dynamics of it as well. So we're happy to introduce Catherine.
Hi, everyone. So happy to be here. Let me go ahead and get my screen going. And actually, before I go totally full screen here, I have so many cool things to show you. I learned quite a few things myself. There's some really cool updates. I know we did this a few years ago, and it was really fun to see new things that have come out since then. But that means we have a lot to cover. I have prepared a whole bunch of links. So you're welcome to take notes if it's helpful for you. But if you just want to remember something, I have a super complete PDF. So that link that I just shared in the chat is a PDF that you can download. So my recommendation would be to sit back, relax, absorb some information, maybe poke a few settings on your phone if you like, but don't feel like you have to take notes or remember things. We've got links to lots more information about anything that's helpful for you here. So quick about me, I have been in software training for quite a few years now, focusing currently on security, but I also have experience in photography and vision accessibility. Got my accessibility sprinkles t-shirt on today from the Parallels podcast, which is fun. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and you'll likely find me enjoying my favorite dairy-free ice cream flavor at our local Clementine's Creamery. Like Frances shared, I have had uveitis since I was a teenager. Took quite some time, but eventually have an ankylosing spondylitis diagnosis. I'm super grateful to have 20/20 vision today, thanks to my smart folks at my local academic teaching hospital. My eyes are pretty quiet and well managed with a biologic. Cimzia is what's working for me currently. And I also have had a different topic for a different day, but I've also had really great success with kind of exploring what things are inflammatory in my diet, and gluten-free, dairy-free seems to be what works for me. Sarah Ballantyne has amazing information. I really like her nuanced philosophy with Nutrivore if you need any diet explorations. These are all of the places I have seen an ophthalmologist, 5 states and Europe. So I've been there myself. So the goal of our time together today is to focus on, I would like to think of this as a large menu of options. Everyone has different ways that their eyes work. Flare-ups affect all of us differently. Mine usually affect one eye at a time. That's not true for everyone. So my goal here is to introduce a lot of possibilities, make you aware of some things that exist so that you can take hopefully 1 or 2 things that are helpful. Not everything is going to be helpful to everyone. Because there are so many amazing accessibility features, we are specifically focusing today on mobile devices. I've done that intentionally because most of us use a phone or a tablet of some kind. In my opinion, those are the easier settings to start with, and that would be the first device I would turn to if I experienced a period of low vision. You can do a lot of these same things on the computer as well. It's just a little bit higher of a learning curve. It's a little bit trickier when you're first getting started. My experience and the kind of knowledge in my brain is from the Apple perspective. So today I'm listing where to find these settings in today's version on iPhone and iPad. I've also did some searching. So in the PDF, if I could easily find a similar feature on Android, I've linked to those resources as well, and I've included the names kind of throughout. Most things, there's a similar option, may just have a slightly different name. I threw that PDF with notes in the chat, so that will be a resource for you long term. I'll share that again at the end. Other quick caveat, today my devices are running iOS 17. That's the latest version that's out there. You all may or may not have exactly the same options on your devices, depending on what software version you're running. And more often, Apple has lots of different devices. So there's different kind of hardware pieces on each type of phone or iPad. So most of these things will be available on most Apple devices. I'll try to call out, there's 1 or 2 features that are only available on some of the latest things. I like learning things. So my philosophy is, one of the scariest thoughts for me when I was first diagnosed was, what if I do lose a lot of vision? With modern treatments, hopefully that's not the case for any of us. The way I kind of got into this was, one of the coping skills that works well for me is learning things in general. My philosophy is, it lowers my anxiety about that, like, what if thought. If I know some resources, it's like, well, there's lots of things I could still do. I can still use all of my favorite devices, even if I have a period of low vision. So that's kind of how I personally came to this knowledge, and wanting to help customers who had low vision as well and kind of share that experience. So I'm going to kind of rapid fire through some of these initial features because I've got some really cool stuff I want to save time for at the end. If you have questions, feel free to enter them in the chat. If it's something you think you might forget as I'm presenting, we'll have a few minutes for Q&A at the end. I'll review those and you'll have a chance to unmute yourself.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm not following the chat, but I don't know I guess it would be kind of good to know like how many people on here have an Apple, and then do people know how to go and find out where their iOS latest version is on the Apple phone? Just to see where they are with
Oh,
that.
sure. Yeah. So when you open any iPhone or iPad, somewhere on there, you have an app called Settings. It is that gray icon that's kind of in the middle of that screen that we'll look at here in a second. If you go into Settings, one of the options kind of toward the bottom of your screen is General. And then there's either About or Software Update will tell you that information. You want an iOS version that starts with 17 will have you the options closest to me. But most of these, the vast majority of things are going to be the same no matter what option you're using.
So no matter what iOS, it'll be similar.
Correct. Yeah, there's a few things I kind of updated kind of my own knowledge for that. So I'll kind of call those out as we go through. But 80% of things will be absolutely exactly the same, even if you have a 5-year-old iPhone.
Okay, great.
So first things for me are kind of starting with easier to turn on things and hopefully some quick things for you to learn here. And again, everyone's different. Hopefully some helpful ideas, but if not, I've got a lot of things to share. So maybe another idea will be helpful for you. First thing for me, if I have a low vision flare, I get super light sensitive if I'm having eye inflammation. So screen brightness, make sure you're making those decisions about that for your device yourself rather than letting your phone kind of do things automatically for you. So if you go into settings under display and brightness, you can choose your brightness yourself. So I like mine to auto adjust in my normal life, but if I'm having a flare, I may want to turn that down to be pretty low brightness most of the time. Everyone's different. Similar settings on Android under display. And want to quickly show how to make this a shortcut. So if you have an iPhone without a home button, like the one I'm showing here, oh, it's going to want to allow my microphone. One moment, let's try that again. This is what it looks like. So as you swipe down in your upper right-hand corner, you can get that shortcut going in Control Center to quickly and easily change your brightness kind of throughout your day, because that can depend on the situation. If you have an Apple device that does have a home button, that's going to be from the bottom of your screen. So you would swipe up from the bottom, find that slider, adjust it, and make it so it works the best for you. Another kind of quick win here is display zoom. So if you go into settings, displays and brightness, and display zoom, this is going to make everything bigger. Keep in mind, this particular one will ask to restart your phone. So this may be one you want to try later if you want to keep playing with things while we're talking here. In general, display zoom, kind of comparing the version on the left is kind of a typical setting. If you turn display zoom on, it just makes everything a little bit bigger. So if bigger is helpful, that can be a good starter option. There are also quite a few options under settings for text size. And there's kind of your typical text size settings. And then if we need things even bigger, if we go into accessibility, we can make things even larger than that. So under settings, displays and brightness, text size here, the phone on the right is showing as large as things can get with those kind of typical sizes. If we need things bigger than that, we want to head over to settings and accessibility, display and text size, and we can turn that up even more. My recommendation here is to avoid probably the two very largest buttons. I don't like to go all the way up on this extra large text size. It's nice that things are big, but at that point, you can start to get things cut off and you maybe can't see all the text on a window. So make it bigger, but maybe not exactly all the way up to the very highest size. Now, this is one of the interesting things where there's been a few updates. There are lots of additional display and text size options, and this is a very personal preference. So when you're under settings, accessibility, display, and text size, there's lots of options here. So you can make everything on your phone bold. if you're having trouble seeing the buttons, like the back button or on or off labels, those can be helpful to give you some like an underline or kind of get some more information for those. Kind of depends on your preference. The ones I have in red here are the ones that I would change first if I was having kind of sensitivity to light or maybe not so great vision for a while. Reduced transparency, I prefer that if I'm having trouble seeing things. It just gives you some more contrast. So I would recommend having that on. Increased contrast, that's up to you. I generally find that more contrast is more helpful, especially if I'm not seeing 100% clearly. Differentiate without color is really aimed at colorblind folks, but if you're having trouble with colors, that can be helpful. It gives you some more information in addition to color if there's something that color is giving you some really important info. Reduce white point, I want that on if I'm light sensitive. It's going to make the white not quite so bright. It's kind of the opposite of increased contrast. So again, kind of play around and find what works for you. If I'm in a time where I want to decide the brightness on my phone and I don't want my phone to change on its own, you may want to turn auto brightness off. For most people, I like this on. So if you walk outside into a really bright sunny day, your phone will brighten up automatically. But if you're sensitive to light, that can be something that you want to control on your own. So that's, again, kind of depends on the person. This is just a real quick, by the way, this is only one button, but audio descriptions are helpful if you are watching a movie or a TV show on your iPhone, like an Apple TV or any of your favorite kind of streaming apps. Some movies and TV shows will have a separate audio track called audio descriptions. Sometimes I like to listen to a TV show or movie while I'm doing the dishes or something else. So I sometimes just use this in my I can still see things live. Audio descriptions can visually describe anything that's visually happening in the TV show. Audio descriptions is going to describe what that looks like. So I like to do this when I'm multitasking sometimes. If you want to use audio descriptions kind of whenever that option is available, turn this on in accessibility settings, but also if I'm streaming something in like Hulu or Paramount Plus, if I look at the settings, kind of the same place where you might turn on subtitles or change a language, sometimes there's an audio description track and you can switch to that as well. Invert color. Again, just depends on what works best for your eyes. Sometimes it's easier to see white text on a black background. Normally, if you start using your phone, you have black text on a white background. It's helpful to see the opposite. Invert color is something that you might play around with. This is in accessibility settings under display and text size. Similar settings available on Android as well. Now there's two options for inverting. I would try smart invert for most people most of the time. That's going to look like the image on the left where we have a black background, white text. But if the phone notices a picture, it's going to show you as a typical picture. Classic invert kind of gives you that negative, kind of strange looking picture images if you run across one. So it's not my favorite, but depending on what you need, that's another option. This is a great trick for everyday life, and then it's even more helpful if you're maybe needing to interact with something. I know I get my eyes dilated, and then sometimes I just want to finish that article I'm reading while I'm at one of my eye checks. So reader view is an option in your web browser. Most web browsers have that these days. That's something that's come out in the last even year or so. If you are on one of those complicated websites, this is going to show up the most often on a website like a news website or a newsletter, something that has a lot of text, pictures, and perhaps ads. If you look around the toolbar of your web browser, there will often be a view called Reader. That's going to sometimes take some of the ads out and take away the complicated structure of the page. You can just focus on the text. So this is really helpful just to eliminate distractions in general. It's even more helpful because this can also help you simplify the website so it's easier to listen to the web page content. So if I'm wanting to read an article and there's not like a built-in listen to this article page, by pulling up Reader, it gets rid of the like navigation. So I don't have to hear all of those complicated things at the header of the page. It just gets me to the article so I can listen to it easier. The demo I'm going to show you is in Safari, but this also exists in Chrome, Firefox, and it's called Immersive Reader in Edge as well, both on the computer and on your phone. So this is what it looks like in an iPhone in Safari. It's not going to be available on every single web page, but most web pages that have a lot of text, you're going to find this option. So if you're looking at the bottom of the page, or the top, wherever you have your toolbar in Safari, there'll be a small A, big A icon. So look for those kind of letter shapes. As you open that up, you'll see a menu similar to this one. We're looking for the option to show reader. In the latest version, there's also a nice option just in general to make just the page of this website bigger or smaller. So above those A's, there's a 100%. You can make the text bigger just for this web page. That can be helpful as well. Now, once I'm in Reader, notice how this is the same web page. I'm just seeing the text. And the way I set this screen, I have a black background and white text. So with those options at the top, you can kind of change the color, you can change the font in this case. There's also a new option here in Safari that's happened in the last year or so called Listen to this page. So if you pull up Reader, tap Listen to this page, it's going to start reading right away to you. If you prefer Reader, if you really like this and you want to use it as much as possible, or if there's a favorite news website that you go to every day and you always want to use Reader when you're on that particular website, if you go into the website settings in Safari, you can use Reader automatically. You just want this on any website where it's possible at all. If you go into your settings app, scroll all the way down to Safari, there's an option for Reader, so you can prefer that anytime that it's available. Now, if you like the idea of listening to things, I know, like I said, I often get in the middle of something and then I get impatient when my eyes are dilated and I want to hear something to get something done when I can't quite see what I'm doing while I'm waiting. So Speak Screen is a great tool for that. I've also used this if I have before that listen option was available on a website. I've also used this if I just wanted to listen to one of those super long news articles while I'm doing something else around the house. So Speak Screen, what this will allow you to do is anything that's on your phone screen, even outside of a web page, the phone can read it out loud to you. So first we have to enable this setting to even be a possibility. That would be done in Settings, Accessibility. There's a whole section for spoken content, and then Speak Screen. So at the top of that screen, there's an option to just turn it on in general. And then there's similar options on Android as well. That would be called Select to Speak, or Reading Mode is a separate app you can install if you have an Android. So this is what those settings look like. So again, we're in the Settings app, we're under Accessibility, we're looking for the Spoken Content option on the left. That takes us into that second screen on the right, and we want to start by turning on Speak Screen just in general. And that little kind of fine print, but what it's saying underneath there is swipe down with 2 fingers from the top of the screen to hear the content of the screen. This is what that looks like in action. So this is my video from a couple years ago, but the same idea still applies. If you're on a website and you want to hear it read out loud to you, this is what that would look like. For Speak Screen, I'm taking 2 fingers and swiping down quickly from the top of the screen.
Under Governor Baker's current phase of the reopening guidelines for Massachusetts,
It starts reading the entire page. I can pause or play.
medical practices are now able to provide
I can change the speed here.
all care, including routine appointments. Mercy has please click
The
here to read
forward
all.
button
Local visit
skips
Mercy.
forward to a new section. This button, if I want to hear something specific, I can touch something specific I want to hear.
Yet, despite these advances, surgeons are frequently still disappointed with the
And it reads a particular area of the screen. So that's what Speak Screen looks like in action. If you like to use this frequently, the speech controller is a tool that might be helpful to turn on. If you like that 2 fingers swipe down from the top, you can use that anytime. If this is something you use a lot though, it can be helpful to see a controller kind of floating around your phone, so it's a little bit easier to access. I know sometimes swiping with various numbers of fingers sometimes can take a little bit of practice to get the hang of. This is what the speech controller will look like. I'll show it in action in a video on the next screen. The speech controller, if you want to, you can turn that on. And that gives us 3 different actions. With a long press, we can have it automatically read everything on the screen without having to use 2 fingers. and you can set a double tap as well. And that's what that icon looks like. So notice how it's kind of hard to see on the screen. You'll just see that little arrow kind of floating around your screen. And this is what that looks like in action. So for speak screen, I've turned on show controller here. That shows this little arrow on your screen at all times. So for long press, it's going to read everything on the screen.
Show controller on. The speech
It's reading
controller
all
allows
of
quick access
this.
to speak screen and speak on touch.
I can pause it. And it shows for double tap is speak on touch. So I can just touch part of the screen.
Double tap. Speak on touch.
It just reads that section. So 2 taps.
Idle opacity 35%.
And I touch the part of the screen I want to hear. And keep in mind, you're choosing those controller actions. If you only like one of them and the double tap is like something you're tapping accidentally, you don't have to turn that on. You could leave that turned off. This is a new one to me that I was pretty excited by. So this feature is called typing feedback. If you are in a place where it's hard to see the keyboard, when you're typing something on your phone, that keyboard is one of the smaller things on your screen that you need to interact with on a super regular basis. Typing feedback, you'd have to think about your situation for using this. If I was using a lot of these spoken things, I would want to keep kind of headphones in my pocket most of the time so my phone isn't speaking everything to the whole world. But with typing feedback, potentially, if you get the hang of this, you could have the phone read out everything that you're typing. I did a quick test and I was able to type somewhat quickly with my eyes closed, without looking at the screen at all. Here's what I would recommend. The setting is turned on under settings, accessibility, spoken content, and I think I copied the wrong thing. It's in that same neighborhood. Let me update my, make sure I'm not giving you incorrect instructions there. Accessibility, spoken content, typing feedback. It's still on that same screen. If you scroll down a little bit towards the middle, there's typing feedback. I would start with only turning on the option to speak words. There's a whole bunch of options on this screen. It sounds a little crazy if your phone is typing out every single letter as you type it. Could be helpful for some people, so that's why all of these options are there. If you just want to try this out, I would start with speak words. That way, as you type out an entire word, your phone reads out what it was that you just typed. That way, if you're in a situation where it's hard to see some of that text or hard to see your keyboard, you can maybe get an idea if you just made a typo or something like that. Again, not necessarily going to be helpful for everyone, just an option. If this doesn't work for you, but it's still challenging to see the keyboard, there's the keyboard that comes with your phone, but there are other apps that you can download that can work as a keyboard instead. There's 2 that Apple features called Keyboard. Keyboard can let you change the font of the keyboard as well as the colors. So if the standard colors on kind of like the gray keyboard don't work for you, if it would be helpful to have a black and white keyboard that's even more contrast, or a blue and yellow keyboard, depending on what your eyes are doing, that can be helpful. Big Keys is specifically aimed at making those keyboard shapes as large as they can be. So Big Keys is another keyboard that you can download. Once you turn it on, it will work any place you use a keyboard throughout your phone, and it's just going to be larger. So if you're having trouble seeing that, it can make it just a little bit bigger. This is another just general productivity tip, but I would use this if I was having challenges typing, if I was having a flare as well. Dictation. So any place you bring up your standard Apple keyboard, in the lower right-hand corner, there will be a little microphone shape. If for some reason, this is on generally automatically, but if for some reason it's gotten turned off, you would go to Settings, General, and Keyboard to turn on dictation. Tap that little, any place you're in, like an email or a text message that you want it to be typed out for you, tap that little microphone and you can speak your sentence out loud. So like, would you like to meet for coffee at 10 a.m. ? Tap the microphone when you're done, and that will type that all out for you so you don't have to use that keyboard as much. It's also good to get in the practice of using, I always call her the lady, the Apple Assistant Siri. If you ring her up, you can also get in the practice of saying, send a text message to contact or family member's name. They'll ask what you want to say. That's also another option. All right, now we're going to get into some of these more advanced, interesting settings. Before we do that, some of these fundamentally change the way that your phone or iPad works. So we want to know how to have an escape hatch to get out of them before we turn some of these on. So there's two different shortcuts that we'll talk about today. First is accessibility shortcut. This is under settings, accessibility, scroll down basically to the bottom. It's almost the last option. There's an option there called accessibility shortcut. The goal with this is if you're using something like Zoom, there might be times you want Zoom on most of the time, but sometimes there's an app that could be hard to navigate with Zoom for whatever reason. You want to be able to turn some of these options on or off, depending on the situation. And I think there's two ways you can use accessibility shortcut. If you have one favorite setting that you use most of the time, if you're a person who loves to make things as large as possible with Zoom and you want to be able to quickly turn it off, one good option is to choose one option for your accessibility shortcut, and then you can quickly toggle Zoom on or off. If you have a handful of settings that you like using frequently, you could select 2 or 3 or more settings, and you just get a quick menu that you're going to interact with to turn them on or off as needed. This is in red on my slide because it's very important to enable this, specifically if you're going to try out Zoom and VoiceOver, which I'll mention in just a bit. We want that get out of jail free if something's not working the way we want to before we turn on Zoom and VoiceOver. So here's what the accessibility shortcut looks like. So if you go into settings, accessibility, scroll all the way down to accessibility shortcut, turn that on. There's probably 30 or 50 settings listed there. There's a bunch of things. Choose the ones that are helpful for you. Could be one, could be several. If you have a device with a button on the right-hand side, let me say this differently. Some Apple devices don't have that home button. So like the option I have on the screen, it just uses a Face ID to unlock. On phones, there's the side button on the right-hand side. On iPads, it's in one of the top corners somewhere. If you triple click that button, it's going to bring up a menu like this. If you have a device with a home button, that friendly circle button towards the bottom or side of your device, that's what you would click 3 times. This can take a little bit of practice. Triple click, you kind of have to do a little bit fast. I think there's a motor accessibility setting to slow down that speed if you're having trouble with that as well. But in this case, if I use Smart Invert sometimes and VoiceOver sometimes and Zoom sometimes, I've added all of those to my accessibility shortcuts. I can quickly choose the option for the one that I'm looking for to turn those on and off. If you're just trying these out one at a time, I would probably just choose one option for your accessibility shortcut. Say, today I'm practicing with Zoom, then you can just click that button 3 times to turn Zoom on or turn Zoom off if you're getting in a place that it's not working for you. This is a cool new addition. This is one of those depending on the phone that you have. If you have a somewhat new phone, it's been around for probably, I think about 2 years or so. On some phones, if you go into settings, accessibility, and touch, you may see an option there for back tap. If you have it, it's cool because you get a second shortcut. This is basically just a second accessibility shortcut, and you can set 2 additional shortcuts to happen. So if I like Smart Invert sometimes, I could set back tap for 2 taps to turn on Smart Invert. So with back tap, basically you're just tapping the back of your phone. If you were to turn your phone over on the side that has the camera, there's kind of the Apple logo on the back. This is literally holding your phone and you tap your finger against the back either 2 or 3 times, I believe. So you get one option for 2 taps, one option for 3 taps. Sometimes people like to use this to take a screenshot. There's a whole bunch of settings there that you could choose. So perhaps I could have 2 accessibility shortcuts. Maybe I use the side button that I just showed you for Smart Invert, and that button, all it does is change the way my colors look. Back tap, I want to use that if I want to turn Zoom on and off. So it basically gets you a whole nother shortcut if your phone happens to have that back tap option available. Zoom. This is the one that I would probably use the most if I was in a flare. So if I'm having trouble seeing things, Zoom is going to make everything bigger on my phone. kind of picture like if you're zooming into the TV so far that you're only seeing a portion of the screen. Where we turn this on is under Settings, Accessibility, and Zoom. I strongly recommend turning on the Zoom controller. That's going to give you a little joystick to be able to easily adjust zoom. This is going to enlarge everything, and you're only going to see a portion of your phone's screen at one time. That's helpful for making things bigger. Can take a little bit of practice to make sure you don't get lost with what you're looking at on your phone. So when we go into settings, accessibility, and zoom, once again, a lot of settings here. Not all of them will be useful to you. Here's the one that I would recommend. If you go into those accessibility and zoom settings, there's an option called follow focus. I recommend turning that on. That's going to keep kind of your keyboard and other typing things where you can see them on the screen generally. Smart typing is going to make it easier for you to type if you get kind of on a different part of the screen. I recommend turning that on. Zoom controller, I recommend turning that on. That way you can easily get out of Zoom and navigate a little bit easier. We want to practice using Zoom before we make things really big. One thing ahead of that, Zoom region is another option. There's a few different ways that you can zoom. If you're using this for the first time, most people prefer full screen Zoom. So for the option called Zoom region, I would stick to full screen, at least as you're getting the hang of it. If it's not working for you, try some of the other options, but usually it works to have the most, your entire screen kind of making things bigger. Maximum zoom. It can be tempting to say, I want to make things as big as possible, but you can get stuck on a tiny, tiny part of your screen and it can be really easy to get lost. I recommend starting off with your maximum zoom at 5 times. Get the hang of it first. If you still need it bigger after that, once you've gotten some practice, slowly bump that up. When we have Zoom on, I like to use the Zoom controller to navigate around, to get in and out of things. The other, Apple likes to use various finger shortcuts. Sometimes those can be a little bit tricky to learn. If we want to zoom in, you can double tap 3 fingers on the screen kind of quickly to zoom in and out. That's why I like to have the Zoom controller. It's a little bit easier to use, in my opinion. So for Zoom, when I turn it on, it gets really big. The first thing to know is to take 3 fingers, and that lets me move around to different sections of the screen. The next skill for Zoom is 3-finger double tap. So take 3 fingers, tap 2 times, and that lets me zoom in and out on the screen. So for Zoom, there's an option for Zoom controller. When I turn this on, I get this control that appears. There are more advanced options, but just turning it on is enough. I can zoom in. I can touch this again to zoom out. I can also control the level of the zoom here, how much we're zoomed in. And then by touching and holding this, I can zoom around different areas of the screen. So I can use this kind of like a joystick to move around rather than the 3-finger drag if that's easier. Once I've turned the Zoom controller on, there are options here for what happens with the single tap, double tap, and triple tap. So I've set my triple tap to choose speak on touch. So we can combine this with that feature we saw earlier. So if I triple tap this button, I can touch something on the screen I want to hear.
Show controller on.
And it reads that portion of the screen. So 1, 2, 3.
Idle opacity 50%.
Which is kind of helpful if you were zoomed in. I can do 2 taps to zoom in. And I can triple tap this.
The Zoom controller allows quick access to Zoom controls.
And it reads that section of the screen that maybe I can't see. So if this is a helpful idea, definitely take some time to practice this. I did not learn all of these things in one day by any stretch. Set aside some time, turn it on with your accessibility shortcut, play around a little bit. When your brain is done for the day, turn it back off and come back to it later. That's where I find it really helpful to take some time to learn these things. If my eyes are doing a little bit better, that way I have that knowledge for later. I'm watching our time and I want to save some time for questions. So I'm intentionally going to breeze over the details of voiceover here. Just want you to know what it is because I don't want you to be playing around in settings and accidentally feel like you can't use your phone. VoiceOver is a very powerful setting. It is designed to make it so you can interact with and use your phone without any vision at all. Can be situations where it's helpful if you are on a train or something and want to use your phone in your pocket. It's kind of helpful in some of those situations too. If you want to turn this on, settings, accessibility, VoiceOver is where that's done. We could have 2 hours of talking just about VoiceOver in and of itself. This totally changes how you use your phone. So if you get stuck, you can always ask Siri to turn VoiceOver on, turn VoiceOver off. This can be combined with Zoom, but I don't recommend it when you're learning. Either use Zoom to rely on the eyesight that you have and make things bigger, or say, you know what, I'm at a point where I just don't want to use my eyes today. I'm going to focus on using VoiceOver. The two of them together is just a lot to kind of try to learn to navigate. Just to give you the speediest what this looks like, I'm just going to play this start of this video that shows you how different it is to interact with things on your phone. VoiceOver is going to read anything I touch with my finger, and I need to know several different gestures to move around my phone. Super powerful, but like I said, it's a whole class in and of itself. Since we set up the accessibility shortcut earlier, I can take the side button and press it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. And I have the option to turn on VoiceOver. If you had a home button, you would press that 3 times quickly.
VoiceOver on. Messages.
At this point, VoiceOver reads anything under my finger. So if I touch something,
Photos.
it's read out loud.
Double tap to open.
If I want to navigate from one thing to the next in order, I can take one finger and swipe right.
Front photos. Camera.
If I want to go backwards, I can swipe left.
Messages.
So if you're in a situation where you don't know what's on the screen, you can swipe right to go sequentially through all of the items on the screen. If I wanted to open something like settings, I can double tap. So at this point, since touching something reads it out loud, I have to double tap if I want to engage something. So I can either double tap by touching something and tapping it twice. I can also touch something and tap with a second finger or thumb.
Bluetooth. Cellular button. Settings. Back button.
So just to give you an idea, VoiceOver changes your phone a lot. Like I said, we could talk about just that for hours. I've got some other cool things though, so I'm going to skip on just a little bit. This next section of our last 10 minutes or so are going to be lots of new and exciting options to enlarge things in the real world. So what we've been talking about previously is how to change the way things look on your phone to make things on your phone screen bigger. But we also may need to interact with signs, menus, paper that people hand you. We may all have various feelings about AI. I think this is an exciting use of AI. I'm sometimes skeptical about the rest of it, but this is rapidly lots of new options. Every time I'm hearing news headlines about this from the various disabled folks I follow online. So too soon to say, I think, which of these options I'm going to show you is the best. This changes rapidly with updates. My opinion, I'm going to share some options, test out a few of them. I would be a little bit careful before spending a lot of money on any of these. Try out the free trials, see if it's going to be helpful for you first. The free one that comes with an Apple device is called Magnifier. Should be on your phone already. If you're kind of on the home screen of your phone where you're seeing all of the apps, if you stick your finger in the middle of the screen and slide down about an inch, you should see a search option come up like it's showing you here. Do a quick search for Magnifier. If you're not seeing it, you can download it from the App Store for free. What Magnifier is going to help us do is interact with something like a menu or a barcode to more easily see it. So this is a screenshot of what that looks like. So if I needed to talk to Apple support and find the serial number on something, I can hold my open magnifier. It's going to bring up the camera. The magnifier controls specifically make it easy to take a temporary photo, use the plus sign to make it as big as we need to. This also has a bunch of other features, including contrast. So what this is showing is that second slider with a little sunshine, it's moved all the way over to the plus to make this as contrasting as possible. But if you look at that serial number, it's still hard to read. It's white text on a gray background. That's kind of hard to see. There's an option here for filters. It's kind of the icon that looks like 3 circles. I can change a filter on that photo to make it black and white. blue and yellow, red and black, depending on what's going on with your vision. I've used this even when I'm having good vision just to see small things. So you can take a photo, make it bigger, and add a filter to it. Now, Apple is adding a variety of interesting new accessibility features here inside of Magnifier, and it's kind of a surprising place to find some of them. Magnifier itself, any Apple device can use them. Some of these advanced features are going to be available only if you have some of the fancier cameras on some of the like iPhone Pro type of things. But this is a really cool feature that I just learned about as I was researching for this. So inside of Magnifier, if you have an appropriate iPhone, there's this option called Point and Speak. There's also an option if you want to kind of hear your iPhone tell you if there's people around you or a doorway. I don't know how helpful that is, but you can have your phone read text out loud to you. I think the coolest one is this Point and Speak. So you would point your camera at the thing that you want to get some more information about. You touch your finger to the thing you want to have read out loud to you. So I tried this yesterday, pointing my phone at a menu that had lots of information. I touched my finger to the part that I wanted to see some more about, and my phone read just that paragraph out to me, which is pretty cool. So this is a quick video from Apple kind of showing, might explain better than just me talking about it.
If you're blind or have low vision, you can use Point and Speak on your iPhone or iPad with LiDAR. Just point your finger at text to hear it read out loud, like the keypad on this touchscreen smart lock.
9, 8.
In Magnifier, tap the Detection Mode button. Or if you use VoiceOver, you can enable detection mode by triple tapping the screen with 4 fingers from any app. Tap the Point and Speak button, then point the camera at the item you'd like read aloud, like this smart lock. Now, point your finger at text in your camera to hear it read to you.
Hand detected. Yale. 1,
When you're finished using detection mode, tap Done.
8, 4.
And that's how to use Point and Speak in Magnifier. Requires iPhone or iPad with LiDAR and the latest version of iOS or iPadOS.
Okay, you get the idea. But go exploring in your Magnifier options. Every phone will have a few different options there, but some potentially helpful things to interact with the rest of the world and see it in a larger way on your phone. So play around with what's in there. If you're having trouble, it went by really fast in that video. If your phone is not speaking things out to you in Magnifier and you want it to be, make sure your sound is turned up and you don't have your phone ringer on silent. That helps. Another free app on your phone is the Apple Notes app, and this can be used to both scan and read documents. This is only for Apple devices. In my opinion, this is best to quickly capture short text or scan a video. This is another video, but basically you're just going to look for the camera icon, and it's going to allow you to quickly take like a menu and turn that into text that you can copy and paste or share with someone else, or maybe make even bigger on your phone. This is a kind of real short
You
demo.
can scan text directly into the Notes app. Here's how it works. In a note, tap the camera button in the toolbar. Tap Scan Text. When the text appears in your note, tap Insert. Then, edit the text if you'd like.
Main idea there, if you have something like just a portion of a menu you want to see in electronic text, that insert text can be a cool way to do it. You can also say, I want to scan a document if you just need to like send a picture of something to someone. Voice Dream is another kind of AI adjacent app. Try it free for 7 days. I would use this if I wanted to have a document, like a PDF, read out loud to me. They have a lot of voice options. If you want to pick your favorite voice, things like that, that can be helpful. It is $79 a year-ish. I was having trouble finding subscription costs, but it does cost money if you want to use it. But see if that 7-day free trial is helpful for you. That app is called Voice Dream. Speechify is a high subscription cost, but you can use some of this for free. Cool thing about this, it's available on Apple and Android. this was the best in my testing if I had a really complicated physical document that I wanted to listen to. So if I had something with a lot of text on it, like a really long menu, this was the easiest to quickly take a picture, get a huge amount of text into my phone, and this could read all of that out loud to you. This can also read documents and emails as well if you need to listen to those. Try it for free. It looks like you can't, but you can skip the $138 annual subscription to try it out without them auto charging you and giving your credit card. You won't be able to have all of the features, but that should give you an idea to see if that's helpful for you. So if you're interacting with a lot of text and you do that a lot, Speechify would be a good option. And this is my favorite thing before we take questions. Last thing here is Be My Eyes. So this is a really cool app. If you are experiencing a period of time where you need some help with visual tasks, you can sign up to use this as a low vision user. If you are in that period of time where you can help other people with visual tasks, this is free for anyone to download on their phone. There's like 7+ million people that are using this app. So the first thing I'll talk about here, if you sign up for Be My Eyes as a low vision user, you can use the Be My Eyes app on Apple devices, Android devices, and Windows computers. This works with various AI programs like ChatGPT, and this is helpful if you want to ask follow-up questions about an image. So if I took a picture of my super complicated menu and I didn't want to listen to everything on the menu, I could take a picture of it, ask Be My AI, are there fajitas on this menu? How much did they cost? And you can actually chat back and forth with the robot to get more information about that image. If you've signed up as a low vision user, you can either go into the app and say, use that Be My AI feature and take a picture and get some information about it and chat back and forth. Or if you're in the Photos app, you can share a photo and there will be an option called Describe with Be My Eyes. So if you take a picture and you're wanting to know more about what's in the picture, you can chat back and forth with the app that way. And this is my favorite because it's free. If you want to help other people that need visual help, if you sign up as a sighted volunteer, it will randomly ring your phone if someone with low vision needs help. This will pair up random strangers in the world. So this is good for like short visual tasks. Like if you want to know if 2 pieces of clothing match, or I helped a friend and she said, you know what, I came back from a trip and I wondered if if this cheese in my fridge was moldy or not. I just called up Be My Eyes. Someone talked to me for 10 seconds and they said, yeah, don't eat that. It doesn't look so great. You can call a random volunteer anywhere in the world and someone will answer. You can also set up your own group of friends or family if you want to call someone that you know. It'll just keep calling through everyone in the group until someone's available. I know I just rattled off a whole bunch of information to you. Again, hopefully 1 or 2 things that are helpful for you. I will put that resources are in the PDF. So I've got links for more information about all of this and even a few things I didn't touch on today that are available in that PDF that you can download. If you have questions, my email is catherine.gastler@gmail.com. So thank you for all of the info. I hope that's helpful.
That was awesome. I'm just amazed at how much your phone can do and how much one doesn't know about how much your phone can do. So
this is all we did not touch on all of the options by any means. There's new stuff coming out all the time, which is exciting.
So where do people go to get that information? It's like you get a phone and I never know where tutorials are.
Yeah, the Apple support has a YouTube channel. So in that PDF, I linked to a whole bunch of Apple YouTube videos. Those are some of the ones that I was showing you. I follow a lot of disabled folks online. If you kind of start telling the algorithm, I want to see things from people with low vision, YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and whatever you like to use, will use that. And it's people are just living their lives and saying like, hey, here's how I do this. So that's where I've learned a lot of these things as well. So those are my 2 favorites.
Wow, thanks. So we can open it up to questions. I don't see any in the chat. Oh,
I think we've got a hand.
There are some. Hold on.